My beloved brother and sister, there are moments in life when everything suddenly feels heavy. Your heart feels tired, your mind feels overwhelmed, and your soul feels stretched in ways you cannot explain. You ask yourself why ease has disappeared, why peace feels distant, and why the things that once made sense now feel unfamiliar. But understand this deeply. Sometimes the weight you feel is not meant to crush you. It is meant to move you. Allah, in His infinite wisdom, does not shift a servant into a new chapter gently every time. Sometimes He shakes what you are attached to so that your heart learns to rely on Him alone. When Allah is preparing you for a new life, the old life begins to feel uncomfortable. What once felt familiar now feels suffocating. What once brought joy now brings restlessness. This is not loss, this is alignment. We often think hardship means Allah is displeased with us. But look at the lives of the prophets. Look at those closest to Allah. Their paths were never free from pain. Their hearts were tested before they were elevated. When Allah wants goodness for you, He wakes your heart beat before He changes your situation. And awakening is never comfortable. Sometimes Allah removes the ease so you stop depending on people. Sometimes He removes the certainty so you learn to trust Him. Sometimes He delays your answers so you strengthen your patience. And sometimes He makes things heavy so you finally let go of what was never meant to stay with you. Ask yourself honestly, if your life had remained easy, would you have turned to Allah with this sincerity? Would your dua have carried this depth? Would your tears have softened your heart this way? Hardship has a way of stripping us of false security and returning us to our true purpose. When Allah is moving you to a new life, He first detaches you from the old one. That detachment hurts. It feels like confusion. It feels like loneliness. It feels like unanswered questions. But Allah never takes something away without replacing it with something better, even if you cannot see it yet. Remember, not everything that ends is a punishment. Some endings are protection. Some endings are mercy. Some endings are divine redirection. Allah closes doors you keep knocking on because He sees what you do not. He knows what lies ahead. And He knows what would harm your soul if it stayed. The heaviness you feel today may be because Allah is strengthening you for tomorrow. You cannot carry a new level of responsibility with an old level of faith. Growth requires pressure. Diamonds are not formed in comfort, neither are strong believers. So when things feel heavy, do not rush to complain. Instead, pause and reflect. Turn that W8 into sujood. Turn that confusion into dua. Turn that pain into patience. Speak to Allah, not only when you are desperate, but when you are transforming. Trust that Allah is not breaking you. He is rebuilding you. Trust that He is not distancing Himself from you. He is drawing you closer. Trust that what feels like delay is actually divine timing, preparing you for something greater than W hat you asked for. A new life does not begin when everything becomes easy. A new life begins when your heart learns to rely on Allah even when things are heavy. And when you emerge from this phase, stronger, softer, closer to Allah, you will look back and realize this weight was not meant to destroy you. It was meant to elevate you. Hold on, keep going. Allah sees your struggle and what He preparing for you is worth every moment of patience. There are times in life when a person feels an unexplained heaviness settling into the heart. The days feel longer, the nights feel quieter, and even small responsibilities feel heavier than they used to. Many people assume that this weight is a sign of failure, weakness, or Allah's displeasure. But very often this heaviness is not a punis meant at all. It is a sign that something within you is shifting, that your soul is being moved from one state to another by the will of Allah. When Allah intends goodness for a servant, He does not always announce it with ease. Sometimes He introduces change through discomfort. The heart begins to feel unsettled because it is outgrowing what once felt sufficient. The soul begins to question, bika. Use it as being prepared for deeper understanding. This internal pressure is often the first sign of spiritual transition. Just as the body feels strain when it grows stronger, the heart feels weight when it is being elevated. This heaviness pushes you to pause, to reflect, to turn inward. It forces you to ask meaningful questions about your purpose, your priorities, and your relationship with Allah. Without this weight, many people would remain spiritually asleep, distracted by comfort and routine. The discomfort becomes a mercy because it wakes the heart before the soul drifts too far from its creator. At times, Allah allows the heart to feel burdened so it learns humility. When life feels light, people often rely on their own strength, their plans and their abilities. But when heaven enters, you realize how fragile you truly are. You begin to turn to Allah with sincerity, not out of habit, but out of need. Your dua changes. Your tears become more honest. Your dependence on Allah becomes real. Spiritual transition is rarely smooth. The old version of you resists change. It clings to comfort, familiarity, and control. That resistance creates tension within the heart. But once you surrender to Allah's wisdom, that heaviness slowly transforms into clarity. You begin to understand that Allah is not taking peace away from you, He's relocating it. He is teaching you that true peace does not come from stable circumstances, but from a heart anchored in trust. So when you feel heavy, do not rush to label it as a sign of loss. It may be a sign that Allah is moving you closer to Him. It may be the weight of growth, the pressure of purification, the beginning of a deeper, more meaningful connection with your Creator. And once that transition completes, you will realize that the heaviness you feared was actually the doorway to spiritual lightness. There are moments when Allah removes the comfort you once relied on, and suddenly life feels unfamiliar and uneasy. What once brought peace no longer satisfies the heart, and what once felt secure now feels fragile. Many people misunderstand this and assume that ease being taken away means Allah has abandoned them. In reality, the removal of comfort is often the beginning of growth. Allah does not strip a servant of comfort out of cruelty, but out of care for their future. Comfort has a way of making people stagnant. When everything feels stable, the heart rarely questions its direction. The soul becomes attached to routine, to familiar blessings, and sometimes even to things that slowly distance it from Allah. So Allah, in His mercy, disrupts that comfort before it becomes a barrier. He removes what you lean on, so you learn to stand on faith instead. Growth requires movement, and movement requires leaving what feels safe. Just as a seed must break open before it can grow, a believer must sometimes be shaken before they can rise. Allah knows that if certain comforts remain, you would never take the step forward that your soul needs. You would remain where you are, even if where you are is limiting your spiritual potential. When comfort is taken away, it exposes the true state of the heart. He reveals whether your trust was in Allah or in the blessings He gave you. This is not meant to shame you, but to refine you. Allah wants your reliance to be on Him, not on people, positions, or situations. Once those supports are removed, your connection with Allah deepens and your faith becomes more sincere. In times of discomfort, dua becomes more meaningful. You no longer speak to Allah surely you speak to Him urgently, honestly, and with humility. Your prayers carry weight because your heart now understands its need. This is where real growth happens. The believer begins to mature, realizing that ease is not a sign of closeness to Allah and hardship is not a sign of distance. Allah removes comfort to make room for something greater. He clears space in your heart so it can hold more faith, more patience, and more wisdom. What feels like loss is often preparation. What feels like instability is often transition. And what feels like discomfort is often Allah guiding you to a level of growth you could never reach while staying comfortable. If Allah has removed the comfort from your life, do not rush to chase it back. Pause and reflect. Ask yourself what lesson is being taught, what strength is being built, and what version of you is being shaped. Because when growth arrives, you will realize that the comfort you lost was never as valuable as the strength and closeness to Allah you gain. There are times when the tests of life seem to come one after another, leaving the heart exhausted and the mind searching for relief. Just when you think you have endured enough, another challenge appears. Many people wonder why the pressure increases instead of easing. But often, the intensification of tests is not a sign of being pushed away. It is a sign of being raised. When elevation is near, the weight becomes heavier because the soul is being prepared for a higher level. Allah tests His servants according to their capacity. And when He sees strength within a hair, He allows it to face greater trials. These tests are not meant to break you, but to refine you. Just as muscles grow only when they are pushed beyond comfort, faith strengthens when it is challenged. If the test feels heavy, it may be because Allah knows you are capable of carrying it, even if you do not yet see that strength within yourself. As elevation approaches, Allah purifies the heart from attachments that cannot accompany you to the next stage. Certain habits, relationships, or dependencies must be weakened or removed. That process is painful, and it often comes through intensified trials. The heart resists letting go, and that resistance adds to the feeling of difficulty. But once the heart releases what no longer serves its purpose, clarity begins to replace confusion. Many of the greatest blessings come after the hardest tests. Patience is not developed in ease, and reliance on Allah is not perfected when everything goes according to plan. It is in moments of intense struggle that the believer learns sincerity, humility, and deep trust. The believer learns that strength does not come from control, but from surrender. When tests intensify, they also sharpen awareness. You become more conscious of Allah, more careful with your actions, and more mindful of your intentions. Your dua becomes more focused, your prayers more meaningful. This heightened spiritual awareness is itself a sign of elevation. Allah is drawing you closer, even if the path feels steep. It is important to remember that ease often follows the peak of difficulty, not its beginning. When pressure feels unbearable, it may be because you are closer to relief than you realize. Allah does not prolong hardship without wisdom. Every test has an expiration, and every struggle carries a hidden reward. So when life feels heavier than usual, do not despair. Do not assume you are being punished or forgotten. Instead, remind yourself that Allah may be strengthening you for a position, responsibility, or a blessing that requires a stronger heart. The intensity of the test often matches the value of what lies ahead. And when you finally reach that new level, you will understand why the journey required such patience and why the struggle was necessary for your elevation. There are moments in life when things begin to leave you without your permission. People drift away or return. It is close, plans fall apart, and what you once held tightly slips through your hands. This loss often feels painful and confusing, especially when you believed those things were essential to your happiness. But in reality, what is leaving your life was never meant to stay. And Allah is simply removing what no longer aligns with your journey. Allah in His wisdom knows what belongs in your futu. And what would hold you back if it remained. Some attachments feel permanent to us because we grow comfortable with them, not because they are beneficial for our souls. When Allah removes them, it feels like emptiness, but that emptiness is intentional. It is space being created for something better, something more suited to who you are becoming. Letting go is difficult because the heart becomes attached to familiarity. Even when something is harmful or limiting, the heart may cling to it simply because it is known. Allah, out of mercy, sometimes takes the decision out of your hands. He separates you from what you would never have the strength to leave on your own. What feels like loss is often protection disguised as pain. When something leaves your life, it also reveals where your trust was placed. If your heart collapses completely, it may be because you were relying on that thing more than you realized. This is not meant to shame you, but to realign you. Allah wants your heart to be attached to Him above all else. Once that attachment is restored, the pain of loss slowly transforms into acceptance. There are relationships that end because they cannot survive the growth Allah has planned for you. There are opportunities that close because they would distract you from a greater purpose. There are paths that collapse because they would lead you away from peace. Allah sees outcomes you cannot see, and He intervenes before harm settles into your future. With time, clarity replaces confusion. You begin to see that what left your life did so at the right moment. Had it stayed longer, it might have delayed your progress or weakened your faith. Allah removes certain things not because you are undeserving, but because you deserve better. Trusting Allah during loss requires patience, but patience brings insight. One day you will look back and realize that the chapter you were desperate to hold on to was never meant to define your story. It was simply a lesson, a a bridge to something greater. And you will thank Allah for removing what you once begged Him to let stay. because He knew that what was leaving your life was never meant to stay. There are moments when you raise your hands in dua again and again, yet the answer does not come in the way you expect. Days turn into months and months into years, and the heart begins to wonder why Allah is silent. Many people mistake delay for denial, assuming that if Allah truly cared, He would respond immediately. But Allah's delays are never empty. They are filled with preparation, wisdom and mercy. Allah knows not only what you are asking for, but who you will become when you receive it. Sometimes what you desire is good, but you are not yet ready to carry it. An early answer could harm you, distract you, or pull you away from Allah. So Allah, in His kindness, withholds the blessing until your heart is strong enough, your intentions are pure enough, and your faith is deep enough to receive it correctly. During delay, Allah works on the unseen parts of you. He teaches patience, builds resilience, and refines reliance. You learn to worship Allah without conditions, to trust Him even when the outcome is unclear. This stage is crucial because a blessing received without spiritual readiness often becomes a test rather than a gift. Allah protects you from that by preparing you first. Delay also redirects your focus. When answers are postponed, the believer learns to value the journey, not just the destination. You begin to understand that closeness to Allah is more valuable than any specific outcome. Your dua becomes less about demanding results and more about seeking guidance, strength, and contentment. This shift in the heart is a sign of growth. Sometimes Allah delays because something better is being arranged. What you are asking for may be small compared to what Allah intends to give you. If He answered too soon, you might settle for less. Delay expands your capacity. Thank you. So when the blessing arrives, it fits perfectly into your life without overwhelming you. Allah's timing is precise. He answers at the moment when the impact will be greatest and the benefit will be lasting. What feels like waiting is actually protection from regret. What feels like silence is actually careful planning by the one who knows you better than you know yourself. So do not lose hope when answers take time. Continue to make dua, continue to trust, and continue to improve yourself during the wait. Because when Allah finally opens the door, you will realize that the delay was not rejection, it was preparation. And you will see that Allah did not ignore your prayers, He honored them in the most perfect way. Hardship has a way of touching the heart in a manner that ease never. It can. When life flows smoothly, the heart often becomes distracted, attached to routine and confident in its own strength. But when difficulty enters, it breaks through that illusion and reminds the soul of its true dependence on Allah. This is why hardship, despite its pain, carries a unique ability to soften the heart and realign it with its true purpose. When a person faces hardship, pride begins to dissolve. The heart recognizes its weakness and turns toward humility. You realize that control was never truly in your hands. And this realization draws you closer to Allah. The heart that once relied on plans, people, or possessions now seeks comfort in prayer, remembrance, and dua. This shift is not accidental. It is Allah gently guiding the heart back to Him. Hardship also strips away distractions. In times of ease, the soul can become absorbed in temporary pleasures, neglecting deeper reflection. Difficulty forces you to slow down and reassess what truly matters. You begin to question your priorities, your intentions, and the direction of your life. This self-awareness is a gift, even though it arrives through discomfort. It brings clarity that comfort often hides. Through hardship, empathy is born. A softened heart becomes more compassionate toward others who are struggling. Pain teaches understanding in ways words never can. You become less judgmental, more patient, and more gentle with those around you. This transformation refines character and strengthens the moral core of a believer. Hardship also realigns the soul with the hereafter. When worldly ease is taken, the temporary nature of this life becomes clearer. The heart begins to long for something more permanent, something more meaningful. This shift helps the believer detach from excessive love of the world and reconnect with the purpose of pleasing Allah. Even though hardship feels heavy, it is never meaningless. Every tear, every moment of patience, and every silent prayer is recorded. Allah uses difficulty to cleanse sins, elevate status, and strengthen faith. What feels like a burden is often a purification process shaping a more sincere believer. If hardship has entered your life, do not assume it is meant to harden you. It is meant to soften you, to bring you closer to Allah, and to realign your soul with what truly matters. And when the hardship eventually lifts, you will find your heart is no longer the same. It is gentler, stronger, and more deeply connected to its Creator than it ever was before. There are moments in life when clarity disappears and answers seem distant. The path ahead feels uncertain, and the heart longs for reassurance. It is in these moments when logic fails and outcomes are hidden that true tawakkul is formed. Trust in Allah is not proof. When everything makes sense, it is proven when nothing does. When answers are unclear, the believer is invited to rely on Allah beyond understanding. You learn to move forward without guarantees, to obey without seeing the full picture, and to remain hopeful without immediate results. This kind of trust requires courage because it means placing your heart in the care of Allah completely without conditions. Uncertainty humbles the soul. It reminds you that knowledge belongs to Allah alone. You stop demanding control and begin seeking guidance instead. Your dua becomes less about certainty and more about surrender. You ask Allah to choose for you, knowing that His choice is always better than your own. In these moments, tawakkul transforms from a concept into a lived experience. You feel fear, yet you continue. You feel doubt, yet you pray. You feel lost, yet you trust that Allah is leading you, even if you cannot see how. Strong tawakkul is not the absence of worry, it is the decision to trust Allah despite it. And when clarity finally arrives, you realize that the uncertainty was not meant to weaken you. It was meant to teach you reliance, deepen your faith, and anchor your heart firmly in trust in Allah. There comes a point in life when the old version of you no longer fits the direction Allah is taking you. What once felt normal begins to feel heavy, and what once satisfied you no longer brings peace. This discomfort is not a sign of loss, it is a sign of growth. A new life begins when the old one can no longer contain who you are becoming. Allah allows this unease, so the heart stops settling for less than what it was created for. The soul begins to crave meaning over habit, purpose over comfort. This inner tension pushes you to leave behind patterns, attachments, and mindsets that no longer serve your faith or your future. Outgrowing an old life requires courage. It means letting go of familiarity and trusting Allah with the unknown. The heart resists at first, but once it surrenders, clarity follows. You begin to see that staying the same would have limited your spiritual progress. A new life does not begin with sudden ease, it begins with awareness. Awareness that Allah is calling you to rise, to mature, and to move closer to Him. When you answer that call, heaviness lifts and the heart finds peace in obedience. What once felt like an ending becomes the beginning of a life more aligned with faith, purpose, and trust in Allah. As you reflect on everything that has been said, remember that the heaviness you feel is not random and it is not without purpose. Allah does not burden a heart unless He intends to elevate it. What feels like confusion is often redirection. What feels like loss is often protection. And what feels like delay is often preparation for something far greater than what you imagined. Every test you are facing, every door that is closed, and every comfort that has been removed is part of a divine plan unfolding with precision. Allah is teaching you reliance, patience, and trust, not to weaken you, but to strengthen your connection with Him. The pressure you feel today is shaping the faith you will need tomorrow. Do not underestimate what Allah is doing within you during this season. While you may be focused on what is falling apart, Allah is focused on what He is building. He is refining your heart, softening your soul, and aligning your life with a purpose greater than ease alone. So hold firmly to prayer, even when your strength feels low. Hold firmly to hope, even when answers feel delayed. And hold firmly to trust, even when the path ahead is unclear. Because all never moves a believer into a new life without guiding them through every step of the journey. One day, you will look back at this heavy season and realize it was the turning point. It was the moment your faith deepened, your heart matured, and your reliance on Allah became real. The weight was not meant to break you. It was meant to prepare you for the new life Allah has been leading you toward all along. Thank you, everyone.